Members, good afternoon. Form to quorum is also the appointed time. I call the meeting to order. The first thing on the agenda is confirmation of the minutes of our last meeting, dated the 19th of June. Dated the 27th of April. So far, we've not received any proposal for amendments, so the minutes are confirmed. Information papers issued since the last meeting, we have none. All right, 3. That is our agenda proper. Food waste collection and delivery arrangements. Please invite the administration to join us now.
We
won't have any further meetings, so this will be the last for the term. All right. For those who just raised their hands, are you going to speak on this item? Well, when the administration is seated, please walk us through the paper, please. How long is your briefing going to be, Secretary? No more than 10 minutes. That should be fine. Okay, please do it as quick as possible. Thank you. Chairman and members of the panel, I'd like to report to members our findings of the consultancy study on food waste collection and to collect views from members. Every day, we are dumping over 3,000 tons of food waste, actually 3,600 to be exact, in our landfills. They account for some 30% of our total municipal waste volume. And then we did a survey, a consulting study, a food waste and yacht waste plan for Hong Kong 2014-2022, and we launched a number of initiatives, including Food Waste Hong Kong campaign in May 2013, and we promote food waste and waste-led culture. And we have various activities, and I believe the public now have a higher awareness of food waste issues. Now we have got food waste management strategy. So in terms of recycling of food waste, now we have started a trial scheme. We hope that we can double the current level of recovery. We hope that major residential developments can join our new trial scheme so that we can centralize the collection of food waste and turn them to energy. Some residential developments can try using smart bins for collection of food waste so that we can have clean and efficient recycling of food waste. Now, for the facilities, OPAC 1 was commissioned in July 2018. And in the same month, we started our Phase 1 waste collection trial scheme. And we've also got the food waste, sewage, sludge, and aerobic co-digestion trial scheme at Tai Po sewage treatment works, and also Phase 2 O Park is now under construction and is expected to start commission in 2022. Now I give the floor to my colleague, the Deputy Director of Environmental Protection, to brief you on the details. I'll be very brief, Chairman. Now, we did a consultancy study on food waste collection. The scope include the appropriate way to collect food waste, and we completed the study in late last year, and there are a few recommendations. Now, the consultant has drawn reference from other jurisdictions, and it is proposed that we should have a phased voluntary scheme starting with food waste from the commercial and industrial sector, C&I sector, because they produce food waste of larger quantities and with lower level of contamination. So it's suggested that we adopt a voluntary approach targeting the C&I sector. Of course, in phase 1, we have already covered some generators from the C&I sector, and with free collection services, we can encourage more participation. Members are concerned as to how food waste should be collected, because food waste is difficult to handle, so we have to carry out a pilot scheme to test the use of different means such as containers, plastic bags, or waste newspaper. And it is suggested that we cover domestic households and use smart food waste collection bins so as to monitor food waste collection, track participation rate, and to arrange on-time collection services when they are full. And we can also adjust the collection services accordingly. And for the collection vehicles and transportation, because food waste decomposes quite quickly, and it is suggested that food waste should be collected on a daily basis at non-peak hours. And because of the nature of food waste, they may not be transported to our refuse transfer center. Rather, they should be directly sent to food waste recovering recycling facilities, and side-loader tanker trucks are preferred because they have a higher payload and are also more efficient. In July 2018, we started the pilot scheme on food waste collection, and that is when the OPAC 1 was commissioned. About 70 public venues took part in our pilot scheme, covering hospitals, FGHD markets and cooked food stores, and shopping malls, public housing estates, and wet markets, wholesale food markets run by AFCD, and we've also covered lunch suppliers of primary and secondary schools, and 120 establishments, mainly from the private sector, also took part in the pilot scheme. On average, we were able to recycle about 100 tons of food waste in the pilot scheme. Now we are going to introduce the second phase in the later of this year. In phase 1, we have got 70 public venues and 120 establishments from the private sector. In the second phase, we will have another 150 more venues, including catering facilities of community service organizations, more shopping centers and wet markets in public housing estates, canteens in government and tertiary institution premises, more public markets and cooked food centers, and also hospitals under the HA. And we will expand the scope to cover food waste from domestic households. So we invite public and private housing estates with experience in source separation of food waste to take part. They can consider using smart food waste collection bins if space permits. And domestic food waste will be directly transported to our facilities to be turned to energy. We also encourage more members of the C&I sector to join phase 2 of the scheme. As I said, Now we're collecting about 100 tons per day under the pilot scheme. Come the second phase, our target for 2022 is 250 tons per day, more than double than what we are doing now. Thank you.
Sorry, the speaker is not coming through. Sorry, the speaker is not coming through. If there are no supplements from the Secretary, I'm going to open the floor to members. We have 5 members already. Each one of you will have 4 minutes to ask your questions. Ms. Tanya Chen, Mr. Ted Hui, Mr. Kwok Wai Keung, and Dr. Low, and me. So first, Ms. Tanya Chen. Thank you, Chairman. Concerning the property management companies, in the second phase, the administration is going to enlist help from the experienced public housing estates and private housing estates. So how are you going to monitor their performance? In the first phase, it was a voluntary basis, so flexibilities were given. But with monitoring, we can find out the effectiveness and we can find out what experience we have learned. And also, the cooked food venues under the purview of FEHD. These cooked food stores operate from early morning into late night. Even late in the night, we would go to have late supper. And a lot of activities would be still going on in these venues. So how can you tackle the problem, the hygiene problem brought about by food waste? Because a lot of refuse would be accumulated at the unloading bay. So how are you going to handle the hygiene problem if having considered the food waste as well? Thank you. I'm going to talk about the general principle. In terms of collection of food waste, it is very important to do it in a hygienic way. We need to strike a balance. In housing estates, we are going to use smart food waste recycling bin on a trial basis in order to track the participation rates and also make the environments more cleaner. And also, we're going to engage government contractors to collect food waste from housing estates so that we will have a better picture of the participation rate. It is on a voluntary basis, but in order to find out the participation rate and also the contamination level of food waste, our contractor is going to help us to monitor these information. Under Deputy Director, please. Those housing estates who have participated in our second phase, we are going to collect the food waste in a centralized manner. This is a pilot scheme, so we are very careful about that. We have carried out a lot of preparation work in terms of publicity and education efforts to teach the residents to take the food waste to the smart food waste collection bin, and also about the time of collection, we would keep in touch with the property management companies. And we are going to find the experienced housing estates as examples to show that this is not very difficult to other participants. So we will see what we need to adjust real time. About the markets under the purview of FEHD, and Mr. Zhang, please. Well, like the Deputy Director said, like in the first phase pilot scheme, the FEHD colleagues would arrange the time schedule for collection depending on the characteristic of each venue. So we don't have a hard and fast rule for every case. We need to liaise with each case individually. So Mr. Ted Hui, please. Thank you, Chair. From the paper and also the presentation, the first phase and second phase food waste collection scheme, we will be collecting 250 tons of food waste by 2022. And there's even an exclamation mark. If we have the MSW charging scheme, we are going to have 1,643 tons of solid waste less. I'm not just talking about food waste each day. So the MSW charging scheme is very important. This is the most important environmental measure of this bureau. Now, because the other lawmakers are not supportive of this, so this is a failure. So, Secretary, you have failed. Without the MSW charging scheme, we have 600,000 tons of food waste created each year that have to be sent to the landfill. So, the Secretary, are you going to apologize to the public because you have completely failed in your policy? Mr. Hui, thank you for your question. I believe that in the past few years, the Environmental Bureau has been very active in different policies in terms of carbon. So, Secretary, would you please answer me? Are you going to apologize? In order to tackle the challenges that Hong Kong face, in different aspects, we have different stakeholders, for example, improving air quality and saving energy and reduce carbon. If there are stakeholders working with us, we can achieve something. Reducing waste is a big challenge because it involves the industries and also households as well. Everyone is creating waste, so everyone has to work with us. But we are not going to stop our work in this regard. There are two about the MSW charging scheme. It can reduce the creation of food waste at source. And secondly, when we collect food waste from housing estates, some housing estates may be reluctant to do it because we don't have the incentives imposed by the MSD charging scheme. So I agree with Mr. Ted Hui. When we have a food waste collection scheme with the MSW charging scheme, it will be an incentive to bring more people on board. Even if some housing estates have an experience in participating in the food waste collection scheme, they may not be eager to join the second phase because there's no incentive. So I agree with Mr. Ted Hui. But looking in Asian countries, including South Korea and Taipei, they have encountered a lot of challenges when they were imposing this MSW charging scheme. They need to find consensus and they need time. Chair, I think he has been speaking for a minute and he has been digressing. Are you going to apologize to the public because of your failure? Please ask a question pertinent to the issue. We have not stopped our work in terms of reducing waste. Your MSW charging scheme is a complete failure. Actually, it is not an appropriate venue to discuss this topic. MSW charging scheme, without it, it will lead to an increase in food waste. Are you going to apologize? Next question, please, Mr. Kwok. He's not here, so Mr. Adiju. Thank you, Chair. About the MSW charging scheme, back in 2018, Mr. Secretary, you have underestimated the ability of the pro-establishment camp to sabotage your policy. You thought you could have enough votes to pass the scheme. So I think you made a mistake in terms of your political judgment. So it's like the columbarium bill and doctors registration ordinance. If you would like to, if you really like to implement the scheme, you can come back in the next term of LegCo. So I have two questions about food waste collection. First, OPAC 1 is up and running. We don't have the latest data, so I don't know whether the capacity is at 200 tons per day. So about the second phase, OPAC 2, it should be completed by 2022 or 23, and also we have the typo sewage treatment works, 50 tons per day. It can be achieved by 2022. So adding all these capacities together, these three food waste facilities, by 2023, you can achieve 550 tons per day. But your target is only 250 tons food waste collected per day by 2022. So I don't think your target is going to match the development of the facilities. You are not going to be utilizing your food waste handling capacity. I don't think there should be any delay. In terms of collection, you should set a target which can catch up with your handling capacity. Second question about collecting household food waste. You can, it is not necessary for you to do the commercial and industry sector first. In the villages, the FEHD has food waste collection facilities, but they are not managing it well. So people just dump their food waste on the roadside and causing infestation of rodents. If you speed up household food waste collection, it would be very welcomed because you would be solving the hygiene problem on the way. Secretary, please. Chair. I will say something and then I will defer to my colleagues. About the centralized collection of food waste, in the first phase, we have covered government organizations and also NGOs. In the next phase, we are going to cover more schools and households. And also, the private sectors can apply for the recycling fund. So there are a wide range of collection services to be provided to these stakeholders. Like the Secretary said, we have a few measures. We have the collection pilot scheme from the recycling fund. What we are trying to do is to explore the mode of food waste collection for household. So villages are one of the area that we would like to cover. So we are going to explore on that. And also, OPAC 2 is expected to commission by 2022. The target of 250 tons per day we have set now is based on the handling capacity of the existing food waste facilities. By the end of next year or early 2022, when the second phase is up and running, we are going to revisit the recovery rate in the second phase and see whether we should adjust the recovery targets upwards.
Mr. Lo Wai Kwok. Thank you, Chair. For municipal solid waste facilities, the government has been working very hard, but it's not easy to deal with these proposals. For instance, the 3 landfills and 1 incinerator, there were heated debate, and then there were charging of the electrical building still vivid in our memory, so it's not very easy. So for we will have a comprehensive treatment facility at Shakuchao, and I'd like to know what is the latest progress. When can we commission that facility? And for food waste, OPAC 1 can deal with about 200 tons per day, and it is now in smooth operation. And the OPAC 2 in Charlene spent quite a while in the Finance Committee, and it has treatment capacity of 300 tons per day. I'd like to know when it can be commissioned. Well, even after all these facilities are in operation, we have more than 10,000 tons of municipal solid waste per day. So what will be the future plan for the food waste collection facilities? And I hope the centralized facilities for food waste can cover domestic food waste as well. I know that OPAC 1 and OPAC 2 are mainly for food waste generated by the C&I sector, but in fact, many members of the public would like to see domestic food waste properly treated. In South Korea, I saw some small-scale food waste composters. They are not really for turning food waste into fertilizers or compost, but they are just a small desiccator. And because after 1 night of desiccation, the bulk is greatly reduced, and this can reduce hygienic and odor problems. I think I mentioned this technology in the past. All right. Small desiccator. It's true that in big cities or in South Korea, they have a multi-pronged approach. Well, so central collection of food waste to energy is the mainstream approach, and I will extend second phase of the scheme to cover domestic food waste as well. So for public or private housing estates with experience of waste collection, I hope they can join in the second phase, so that turning waste to energy is a more sustainable way of handling it. Now we are thinking, we are doing a feasibility study for OPAC 3. Now, it is challenging to find new sites for more such facilities. So we're seeing how sewage treatment plants can have food waste, sewage sludge, anaerobic co-digestion to make it more efficient. Thank you. For the comprehensive waste management facilities in Shakuchao, the works started in 2017. We're now working on the seawall. Because of COVID-19, we're a bit behind schedule. We hope that in early 2025, the facility can be commissioned. As regards OPAC 2, the contract was signed in September last year. It is progressing smoothly. we hope that by end 2022 it can start operation. Just a short point. The home composters in South Korea, it cannot replace the subsequent procedures after desiccation. But then since the food waste is already dried, there will be no odor problem and the bulk is greatly reduced. It can save transportation costs. I hope the administration can consider this. Yes, please do. Mr. Wu Chi-wai. Now, the pilot scheme on food waste collection is based on previous experience, and this time you will improve on the weight of collection. However, faced with the amount of food waste generated per day, what you can offer is still a drop in the bucket. In other countries, they will sort a separate wet and dry food waste, and they will also break down the food waste. Of course, in Hong Kong, we have many old buildings. The Undersecretary has told us a number of times that a new trial scheme has been incorporated into new development areas. But in second phase of the pilot scheme, there is no mention of that. So I'd like to know whether the trial is really ongoing. And second, I'd like to know whether this strategy is included in your agenda for food waste collection. If so, have you got the green light from government departments, and have you got the facilities ready, like improvement of your drainage system, and in your sewage treatment plant, will you boost its capacity so that we can use this method to assess the collection and management of food waste? You can imagine that with all that you're doing, you can only cover 500 tons per day, and yet we are producing over 10,000 tons per day of waste, and over half, and that is over 5,000 tons is food waste or wet municipal waste. So I'd like to know, in your pilot scheme, will you make use of our storage system, and in new development areas and new buildings, will you introduce such facilities, such a device for collection of food waste? Do you have any progress in this regard? The answer to Mr. Wu's question is yes, and I can supplement later. Although we have dumped 3,000 tons of food waste at our landfills per day now, by international standard, we can only collect about half of the daily production. So if we can collect over 1,000 per day, that is almost the target we can reach. Mr. Wu is talking about having a simple mechanical device at a kitchen sink and deal with food waste there. We are using our fund to support a pilot scheme, retrofitting such device at existing buildings. I understand that such initiatives will start by in the second half of this year, and we will liaise very closely with the relevant departments and in NDAs. If the sewerage system can cope with such food waste, then we will adopt it, and then waste can be turned to energy. Now, in our Environment and Conservation Fund, 5 projects were approved last year. In 9 residential blocks covering over 600 households, home food waste processors have been retrofitted. So The installation will start in the first and second quarter of this year, when the trial will last about 1 year. The DSD and EPD will analyze the outcome, and after using home food waste digester, they will look at the water consumption and also the ability of the sewerage system to cope. So our pilot scheme will cover waste collection, and by means of the fund, we support these residential units to install such digesters for a trial. I'd just like to confirm whether this is a policy direction already approved. He said that the answer was in the positive. We adopt a multi-pronged approach. If it is found to be feasible in our trial, then it will be expanded. Mr. Ray Chen, thank you, Chair. At a special FC meeting of the budget, I asked the Secretary about the operation of the organic waste treatment center. Now, because of the epidemic, many catering establishments have seen the business dwindling, or people just buy takeaway. So I'd like to know the latest situation. At the FC meeting, I asked the Secretary the amount of compost produced, because you expect that in Old Park you can collect 73,000 tons of food waste, and you can produce 7,000 tons, but now you can actually collect 30,000 tons of food waste. And we're told that in the early phase of operation, you won't be able to collect that amount of food waste, and you can only reach the target after the facility has been up and running for a while. So almost a few months have elapsed, and I'd like to know when you can reach the target. In our briefing, that was done before Mr. Ray Chen arrived. We hope that by means of the second phase of the pilot scheme, we can cover more food waste sources, so that the amount of food waste to be collected will be doubled. So we can collect up to 200 tons per day, plus the 50 tons of food waste that can be processed by means of anaerobic co-digestion. You can cope with that much. I think we understand that in the past couple of months, restaurants and catering outlets had a downturn in their business. So on average, we were collecting less than 100 tons per day. But let's be forward-looking. We will double the sources of food waste in the future to maximize the processing capacity we have now. What about the production of compost from your parks? When can you reach your targeted production rate? Is it because you are not collecting sufficient food waste, or is it because you're not able to culture as much? Now, at first, we dare not collect so much food waste because after treating food waste, we will end up having compost, and about 90% of the compost produced can be used locally. Well, when can you achieve the targets laid down in your draft estimates? How much can be turned to energy? And are we able to absorb all the food waste in Hong Kong? Can you please clarify your question?
The member was asking about the targets because it is a pilot scheme, so you have not told us the actual figure. So when are you going to reach your targets? So Chair, actually, the second phase of food waste collection scheme has doubled our collection volume and also the source of collections. So we are going to fully utilize the food waste handling capacity in phase one. So Mr. Tony J. I'm also asking about the targets. In 2022, you will have 250 tons per day. Back in 2018, the OPAC 2, in relation to OPAC 2, the Secretary told us that we would have 300 tons capacity per day after commissioning. So that's the direction that we are looking at. The handling capacity will be increasing in the future. Every year we have 3,000 tons per year. So if we only reach half of it, we still have 1,500 or 600 tons. So there's still some way to go before the Secretary can reach his target. Even if you can reach your collection targets, you don't have the necessary capacity to handle them. And second, in the paper you mentioned about the $50 million. So Secretary, maybe I have missed your point. You said you would encourage the industry to initiate food waste collection business and also to invest in the relevant facilities. So how can you encourage them to do that, and what is the timetable? Actually, this is a very good opportunity for the government to make some spending because jobs can be created as well. So concerning the members' question for OPAC 1 and the typo sewage treatment works, the food waste, sewage sludge, anaerobic digestion program, we can handle 250 tons per day. So we want to fully utilize that capacity. By 2023, we're going to double this handling capacity. We're going to have an additional 300 tons per day by OPAC 2, and also the Sha Tin sewage treatment works. We're going to have another 50 tons of capacity each day. So after the second phase is commissioned, we will make plannings for the next 3 years to expand our capacity to more than double. Mr. Tony J, are you happy with his answer? But the Secretary hasn't answered me about the number of tons. OPAC 1 plus OPAC 2 plus the 2 STW, we are going to have 500 to 600 tons of food waste handling capacity per day. So you can just reach 1/3 of your targets. Deputy Director, in the paper, in 2018, the recycling fund has rolled out or earmarked $50 million for food waste collection efforts. It is to support the food waste recyclers in terms of manpower, facilities, investments, and so on. So the recycling fund has approved 19 projects concerning food waste collection, including assisting initiation of food waste collection business, support of new technology investments on new technologies and new equipments. So I want to follow up a bit on this about the 19 projects. How many or how much have been spent? And what is the response? Have you reviewed whether these projects are a success? Well, actually, the response is very positive. When the industry makes this investment, for example, buying food waste composters, they it very much depends on whether the government has such policies in place. In the past few years, the industry has seen that the government has been increasing its efforts on this regard. We have been expanding our collection network, so they are having more faith in us. These 19 projects are receiving 40-something millions subsidies. So, Chair, if these projects are a success, of course, I would support these projects. But we have earmarked $50 million. If it is necessary, maybe we can put more resources in this regard. So it is my turn to ask now. This is just my first round. So I would like to thank the Secretary to be here. Concerning foodways, Hong Kongers support it on principle. Many members ask about whether you can reach your targets and also the details. But I would like to ask some technical questions on behalf of my industry. There are people who has pig farms. Now, every day, schools have excess food supply, so the pig farmers would collect the excess food from schools and turn them into pig feeds. But in 2018, there was the swine flu, African swine flu. So in January 2019, the government banned using food waste with animal genes. So to play safe, we would not use these kind of food waste as animal feeds. So many people consider that the school lunch suppliers have been creating a lot of excess food. So, Secretary, in terms of Phase 2 and Phase 3, you have been promoting food-wise culture. But from the commercial point of view, if you supply more, you can earn more. We have the producer's responsibility scheme, but it is not mature enough. So I think the government should make more publicity efforts in terms of reducing food waste created by school lunch suppliers. And second, we have 2 old parks. Now, looking at paragraph 6G, the consultancy report said that food waste are would easily deteriorate, so it is not suitable to transfer them to waste refuge referral centers. So we would use side-loaded tankers trucks to collect food waste. So I would like to see how large a fleet does the government have, and how many of these side-loaded tanker trucks would the government have. In the 2 phases, the handling facilities, one in the North District, and one in Shou Ho Wan, and one in Tai Po. So how are these handling facilities distributed? If they are distributed far apart, then you have to invest in a larger vehicle fleet. So 3 questions. So first, Chair, you are very right. Schools are very good establishments to promote food-wise culture. So we have a green campus scheme. We will install facilities in schools, and also students can ask for a portioned meal. This is the food-wise publicity campaign. But in the first half this year, we have encountered some difficulties. We are going to work more in the latter half of this year. I agree. I endorse, Secretary, your principle. But what about the suppliers? We have to look at the effects. My friend, the pig farmers, would like to collect food waste from schools because efforts was not very effective. Chair, in Asian countries like South Korea and Taiwan, food waste have been collected and turned into pig feed. But because of the African swine flu, this has been stopped. And concerning the vehicle fleet and the venues, I will defer to my colleagues. Deputy Director, please. Chair, about the collection of school food waste, that is a highlight of our project. In the first phase, we have 10 school lunch suppliers who have been working with us to collect food waste from schools. In the first phase, over 600 schools have been taken on board. But the recovery rate is not very high, so in the next phase, we are going to do more publicity and education, and also putting more resources for schools to have facilities for recycling. About venues, in the first and second phases, our facilities are located territory-wide in Hong Kong, so the cost for delivery is high. So in the pilot scheme, we have covered all 18 districts, but we are going to look into how we can arrange the delivery route to make it more cost-effective and to make it more centralized. Thank you. So please give us data about the cost and also the 150 venues after the meeting. We still have 5 minutes. Anyone who would like to ask questions in the second round? Mr. Ted Hui, I will give you 2 minutes, and then the Secretary will answer your questions, and I will summarize. I will not ask any questions about MSW charging scheme again. The most important scheme in his tenure has failed, but it seems like he doesn't care about it. So my question, paragraphs 7 to 9, phase 1 of the food waste collection scheme, those food waste will be transferred to OPAC 1. But what about phase 2? Where will you deliver your food waste? Last year, in the government's Public Works Committee's meeting, the administration gave us a timetable of food waste delivery. By 2023, you would handle 1,800 tons of food waste per day. So how are you going to deliver these food waste? Free of charge? Or part of it free of charge? And what is the cost? Can you tell me the blueprint? Deputy Director, please. The phase 2 pilot scheme will be rolled out later this year. They will be delivered to OPAC 1 and also the typo sewage treatment works using the food waste sewage sludge anaerobic co-digestion technology. There will be 250 tons capacity per day. Now, the phase 1 capacity has not been fully utilized. On the good days, we can collect 150 tons and deliver them to OPAC 1. Our long-term target is to collect 1,800 tons of food waste. That's our long-term goal. So we are making use of our pilot scheme to look at this situation. Under the pilot scheme, we would recover food waste free of charge from household and the C&I sectors. But in the long run, we have to review the efficiency of the pilot scheme and look into our experience and also the completion of facilities to decide that. So this is the end of this item. So we will invite the administration for the next item to join us. Secretary, thank you for your work. This is the last meeting of the panel on environmental affairs in this term. So I hope that if we have the opportunity to meet again next term, there would be less problems. Thank you.
Item 4, management of yacht waste. If Mr. Z is ready, please walk us through the paper. How long are you going to take? About 5 minutes. All right. Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. We're producing about 160 to 180 tons of yacht waste every day. Although that only accounts for about 1.5% of the total amount of municipal solid waste dumped at our landfills, after proper treatment, general yacht waste can be reused or recycled. It's just that Hong Kong previously did not focus on yacht waste, and therefore in 2014, the Environment Bureau promulgated a food waste and yacht waste plan for Hong Kong 2014 to 2022. Now, our strategy in dealing with yacht waste is waste reduction at source. We encourage separation, collection, and find the best way to treat the unavoidable portion. Now, composting cannot be the only solution, and we do have sufficient land to tackle our yacht waste. We are here to report to you our problems, our current situation, and the way forward. I now invite my colleague to give you a slideshow. Yes. In 2014, we promulgated the yacht waste plan for Hong Kong 2014 to 2022, and we issued a guideline to settle good practices for different departments so that they can have their own work plans. Take the AFCD as example. In country parks, they treat yacht waste on site as far as possible, and for the usable items, they will use them for making furniture or decorative items for recreational facilities. The LCSA has got many gardens, so they use on-site composting plant for composting, and they tend to plant more perennials nowadays. For the civil engineering and development department, they choose perennials as far as possible to reduce the generation of yacht waste. And for our department, every year we will help to recycle Christmas trees and also peach blossom trees and use them and turn them to usable materials. And after typhoons such as Mangkhut, we had a huge amount of yacht waste, and we have reviewed the situation, and there are a number of problems to be overcome. The usual problem with yacht waste is always contaminated with things such as plastic bags, metal bars, and stones. And other departments have a similar experience. Composting requires time and also space. Given that land is scarce in Hong Kong, this is not easy to overcome. Composting takes a long time, and it's very challenging to handle a huge amount of waste at the same time. And even if we have breaking down branches to mulch, we need space, and we need to change our policies in order to enhance recycling. So we are going to have enhanced measures in the following 3 areas. First, sorting and collection of yacht waste. Treatment. Second, to enhance reuse and recycling. After Typhoon Mangkhut, the EPD issued new guidelines, hoping that our works departments can add this term in their contracts, and that is yacht waste should be collected and separated at source as far as possible. if trees can be shredded into wood chips, then they can be used on site in the future. And tree trunks can be transported to the EPD for our central treatment. As for yard waste treatment, we do not have a centralized area to deal with it. Now there we have a site of about 4 hectares. We're going to develop a yard waste processing center at T Park. We hope to start its operation in 2021. It will last for 4 years, and I hope it can be a new way of treating yard waste. There will be a visitor center, there will be guided tours, and the contractor will help us to promote the center. Yard waste will be made into different useful materials to increase the demand from the market. For instance, composting. We have now standardized the specifications in government contracts, and we hope that our works departments can procure organic compost as far as possible. And we will also explore the use of wood chips for composting or for mushroom cultivation materials. Members and also the industry have asked whether we can have other outlets for yard waste. One possible use is biochar. By means of a thermal decomposition process, we want to produce biochar. For details, please refer to the paper. Lastly, it's about upcycling. Now, after Mangat, many landscape architects would like to use wood. The biggest problem is the fallen trees were too big. They could not saw them, and we will cut the large trees into wood boards and beams so that wood artists and architects can come and use them. By means of such services, we would like to enhance the demand for such materials from the market. Thank you. If there is no further points from the government, then I will invite members to ask questions. 4. I can see 4 hands. 5. All right. Each will have up to 4 minutes. Mr. Eddie Ju, Mr. Rachel, Mr. Tony C, Mr. Ted Hui, and Mr. Kenneth Lau, and myself. Mr. Eddie Ju. Thank you, Chairman. After reading the paper, I see that the Yacht Waste Processing Center and the facilities for making biochar will cost government spending. Now, at first, it could be completed within this term, but because the cost was less than $30 million, can you do it without any approval from the Finance Committee? Yes, our plan is to make available resources from within the government. Since it is not a huge amount, we don't have to go to FC. That being the case, my concern is about the proposed biochar. According to your paper, there are various benefits associated with biochar. You can also reduce the emission of warm greenhouse gases. So if you can a cheaper way of handling up to 15 to 20 tons per day in early 2022, I hope you can focus your resources. At first, I hope that instead of composting, you can focus on creation of biochar, and you can also work on upcycling. So if you focus your energy on using biochar as an outlet of your yacht waste, how much you can do? So how much can you process out of the 160 tons produced per day? Yes, this is exactly our concern. The reason why we have a dual-pronged approach is because we will have a processing center in T Park. It will mainly sort out yacht waste and cut it up. Some can be used for mushroom cultivation, but the consumption is not going to be high here. The main use will be mulching at country parks and our parks. If it is 60 tons per day, I think that is the maximum capacity for Hong Kong. So phase 1 will be 30 tons and phase 2 60 tons per day. You're correct in saying that our focus is on production of biochar. We believe we'll be able to absorb all biochar will be able to absorb all our yacht waste. Biochar may also replace some of the charcoal available at supermarkets for BBQ. So this is a long-term solution for some of our yacht waste, but the problem is technology and also the methodology. So that's why we would like to develop a small-scale pilot plant in our eco park so that we can grasp the technology better. We also need to develop the local market. So we have to adopt a step-by-step approach. Land is a constraint. But if there is both technology and a market for biochar, then we can build a plant at our more remote restored landfill. So the first thing is to resolve the technological difficulties and to set up a market. Is it that the 15 to 20 tons of yacht waste will be among the 60 tons of the yacht waste treated at the processing center? No, it's in addition to that. Mr. Ray Chen, now we understand there will be a yacht waste processing center and there will be a pilot scheme for production of biochar. The processing center can deal with about 60 tons of yacht waste per day, and for the pilot plant, it could turn 15 to 20 tons of yacht waste to 3 to 5 tons of biochar. Now, biochar can be generated through a thermal decomposition process conducted under low oxygen or an anaerobic environment. I'd like to know that whether you can achieve this target of handling 15 to 20 tons of yacht waste per day to produce 3 to 5 tons of biochar once it started operation in early 2022, because I do not want to see a repetition of your food waste recycling facilities. What about the carbon emission? Now, according to Para 10, you need $30 million to build the center. And I'd like to know the amount required for setting up the pilot plant and also the recurrent expenditure for that plant.
Secretary, please. I will defer to my colleagues to explain the details of our plan. Deputy Director, please. Thank you, Chair and members. For biochar, it is not a biotechnology. It is involved in thermal technology. So if we have enough woody materials, we can achieve the target swiftly. As for the cost and also the energy needed and also the carbon generated, we don't have an estimate yet because we have just commissioned a consultancy study into which technology we would choose and also the equipments needed. When we have a result, maybe half a year later, we will be in a position to provide you with more data. What about the Yacht Waste Processing Center? We don't have a data yet. The annual capacity or the operational cost for the Yacht Processing Center, it is just operated on a operation contract. No technology, no high-tech technologies are involved. So the $30 million covered construction and some of the service charge. You said you need to wait for the study to complete before you know how much will be spent on biochar. Well, concerning the timetable, we have commissioned the consultancy study last month. So we are looking at the middle of next year where we can invite tender. And then it can be rolled out then. So please update us when the time has come. So actually those photos on the slide are just downloaded from the internet. Yes, that is the case for biochar. They are photos from other sources. So Mr. Tony, Chair, please. Thank you, Chair. The secretaries told us that land would be required to build these centers. In the short term, we can achieve 60 tons capacity each day. The target is 160 to 80 per day. So there's still a way to go. And also you said you would look at whether you can make use of restored landfill sites. Are these efforts going on simultaneously? That's my first question. The second question, in paragraph 3, it says government departments generate and collect about 100 tons of yard waste every day, mainly from public works and daily clearance duties relating to routine vegetation maintenance, such as that for slopes. In paragraph 7, the Environmental Protection Department has issued the guidelines on handling yard waste for recycling and disposal. Where it permits, the government would include these guidelines into contracts and invitations for tender. So you said these guidelines would be included where appropriate. So which departments would be able to determine whether it is an appropriate case? So the target is all new government contracts would have these guidelines in place. Appropriate means a site is appropriate for on-site composting and handling. It simply means whether there is enough space to do that. If the space is not enough, these yard waste will be transported to yard waste handling facility under EPD. So everyone would have to do that. The difference only lies in whether it would be done on site. So is it a target to handle all yard waste? Yes, that is the target. We would like to handle all yard waste. In our processing center, separation and shredding would be done. So maybe 60 tons is already the maximum capacity, because the demand for mulch is only so much in Hong Kong. Looking at other experience like in Stockholm, they have been doing that for quite some time. So we are quite confident about that. But first, we need to choose the appropriate technology, and we need to seek out the market. So we want to handle all the yard waste in Hong Kong. So thank you. So yard waste generated by government works will definitely be recycled in your center. So that's very good. So it has been, you have been doing that since September. So have you been putting these guidelines into any contracts? Yes, there have been some. So I would like to defer to my colleagues for details. Thank you, Chair. I don't have the accurate number of how many contracts with this guideline in place. But any new contracts or documents are issued now would have the guideline in place. So actually, my concern is only that this policy is being put into place. So thank you. Mr. Ted Hui. Now about the government departments which generate yard waste, we have been asking many questions about the government departments which handle trees. They have been delivering yard waste to the landfills for a long time. Actually, the recycling rate has decreased from 3.4% to 1.45%. So why are we going backwards? Paragraph 7. The EPD issued the guidelines on handling yard waste for recycling and disposal in September 2019, stipulating that yard waste generated from public works has to be collected and separated on site. For those which cannot be handled on site, they have to be sent to recycling facilities under the EPD. So what are you referring to by these facilities? Are you talking about the yard waste recycling center in the Eco Park? So, because I don't know where these yard waste will be sent. Some of these yard waste are transported by the government departments, and I believe that more of these yard waste are delivered by contractors. So how can you make sure that the contractors have delivered your yard waste to the recycling sectors, recycling facilities? Because the Hong Kong citizens have no faith in the recycling system as a whole. When we use GPS to track the plastic bottles and other recyclables, we found out more than half of them were not sent to the recycling centers, but to the landfills. So how can we trust you? So, Secretary, would you please tell us more about the monitoring regime as well? Because there have been cases where contractors deliver the recyclables directly to the landfills. Secretary? I will defer to my colleague for the actual operation, but I would like to say for our processing centers, they have been commissioned in 2011. The capacity has reached 60 tons per day. So 100 tons of yard waste are produced by the government per day. For those which cannot be handled on site, they will be transported to our recycling centers. So I believe we have the enough capacity to deal with the yard waste generated by public works and government departments. About the operation details, Mr. Zhang, please. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Member. In September 2019, after we issued the guidelines, we have been following up on the situation. when a large pile of woody waste are transported to our landfills, we would have record so we can follow up on these cases. In January, in some interdepartmental meetings, we have briefed the other departments about our yard waste recycling plan and also our biochar and ORCC facilities. The departments are aware of our efforts, and we have been keeping tab on that. So since the guidelines was issued, have you found out any departments which has not followed your guidelines? Has any government departments given any inaccurate data or made false reports? Well, there are no false reports, but there are cases which need to be followed up. So maybe that's because of the lack of experience, there are some mistakes made during the process. Well, can you give us the number of these irregularities? Maybe after the meeting. Okay, next question, please. Chair. To promote reusing and recycling or upcycling of yard waste, the government has been encouraging separation at source and collection and recycling. We support that, but the progress is slow. There are no obvious improvements. So I hope the government can work closely with the stakeholders to increase the recovery rate of yard waste. The EPD would make use of the land, the site near T Park to build yard waste processing centers. The capacity would be increased from 30 tons to 60 tons soon. 100 tons of yard waste would be collected from government works each day, but this figure does not include yard waste from other sources, especially after Typhoon Mangkhut. It seems that after the super typhoon, the government still does not have a policy in place for that. 2 years ago, after the super typhoon Mangkhut, there have been a lot of fallen trees, and many trees were not removed rapidly. So I would like to ask, have the removal of these fallen trees been completed? And we are entering the typhoon season. Are you liaising with other government departments to devise measures to deal with fallen trees after typhoons? Secretary, please. So, fallen trees created by typhoon. For the fallen trees after Typhoon Mangkhut, all of them have been dealt with. If you still see fallen trees at remote locations, please notify us. And the member is concerned when there are more typhoons, what will the government do? Because the government has spent a long time to remove the yard waste and fallen trees created by Mangkhut. So we have gained experience from the super typhoon. We have procured enough wood shredder. If there is another super typhoon like Mangkhut creating a lot of fallen trees, we will place these wood shredders outside the landfills to handle these yard waste. So we do have the capacity to deal with the emergencies brought about by typhoons. But what we are looking at is how we can deal with the daily yard waste created in the long run. Our target is to recycle or even upcycle all the yard waste rather than just shredding them. So hence, we have this plan. Maybe the member thinks that the progress is slow because we have spent a few years to study foreign countries' examples. But in 2021 or 22, we will be able to achieve 80 tons capacity for a day, representing half of the yacht waste created each day. And if biochar works, I believe we can handle the remaining yacht waste in a short period of time.
A follow-up. The administration said that it would turn restored landfills in remote villages to that waste recycling center. Where are you talking about? Well, we would choose just remote areas. We have not exactly chosen a place to do that yet. Have you assessed whether you would affect villages in such an operation? Well, we have to choose remote areas far away from residential dwellings to affect to avoid impact on the neighborhood. Now we have a room to deal with 60 tons, and then we only talk about a few tens of tons of yacht waste per day, and the vehicle generated will not cause too much nuisance to the nearby places. All right, it's now my turn. In fact, I share Mr. Kenneth Lau's concern because both the government's paper and the Legislative Secretariat's paper mentioned the situation after Manguet. Now, Para 5 is about problems needed to be surmounted with no solution. And from the Secretariat's paper, it is said that after Manguet in 2018, a large industrial scale wood shredder was procured. And we're told that sufficient wood shredders. Are you talking about this 3 shredders, both for industrial and non-industrial uses? Because after Manguet, we had many fallen trees, and then some yacht waste. They have yet to be handled 1 year after the typhoon. Fortunately, come the next year, we did not have another major typhoon, so that the problem has not grown. But in different places, people have joined together to form volunteers. They use the electronic saw to saw down the fallen trees. And according to this paper, there were 8,000 vehicle trips to collect the trunks. That means after we have cut down the thicker tree trunks, we do not have smaller shredders, and then at the refuse collection centers, there were long queues a few days after Manguet. So this is something for the administration to tackle. So when it comes to a sufficient number of wood shredders, how do you assess the demand? Yes, Chair, what you said was true. After Typhoon Manguet, at first we even had difficulties transporting the fallen branches away, and sometimes they were sent to the refuse transfer centers, but the plant there could not cope, and then it broke down afterwards. So we had to transport them to our refuse transfer centers, but then when they could not cope, we had to place them somewhere. Now the shredders were only bought sometime after the attack. So within the government, we have a new contingency plan for a typhoon attack. And of course, EPD is responsible for dealing with the aftermath of a typhoon. But we have got a few areas that can be called to use in case of an emergency, mainly outside landfills. We can make available space there for storage of those tree waste, so we don't have to use Kitech. And we have got wood shredders, and then the wood shreds can be used if they're usable. If not, they can be immediately dumped into our landfills. So we have a greater capacity to deal with such things. As regards the total number of wood shredders, perhaps my colleague can supplement. We still have that 3 wood shredders stored at our landfills and eco park. We are using them. Our eco park has got 1, and then Ta Kung Ling and Chang Kwan O landfills have got the 2 wood shredders. We hope that at the center at T Park, we can buy more wood shredders. I got your point, but then para 19 of the electrical brief mentioned 3 wood shredders. I did not say that they were gone, but I'd like to know whether they are sufficient, because there were 8,200 truckloads of tree waste after Mangat, because after the fallen trees were sawn, there were nothing to further break down the size. So you have got 1 industrial grade wood shredder and 2 non-industrial grade wood shredders. But can you have mobile wood shredders for shredding things like peach blossom branches? Can you have something similar? And you answer this question first. I still have time. Mr. Zhang, thank you. The wood shredders are a bit risky to use. We only want them to be operated by trained personnel. So, as said by the Undersecretary, near our landfills, we've got space there. We can centralize our tree waste there. It is safer for members of the public. It's not really safe for members of the public to operate wood shredders. Last time we didn't have a convenient place, and there was no clear guidelines for drivers. They thought that they would just carry the tree waste to refuse transfer center. Now we have very close liaison with trade unions. When there's a typhoon, they know what to do, and we've just had a meeting with the drivers. All right, second round. Although I mentioned mobile wood shredders for members of the public, in fact, I'm not saying that members of the public should operate them. There should be an operator, and I hope you can be prepared for another major typhoon. Even if you have a space near landfills, 1 or 2 wood shredders may not be able to cope because it's too inefficient. Because tree waste can fill up a truck very quickly. And as for biochar and cycling the yacht waste and for use by wood artists. Now, for these, you need land and resources, mainly money. You also need manpower and a network, and also technology. It's good that you have a multi-pronged approach, but looking at the circumstances in Hong Kong, is a biochar very land incentive because you have to dry them, you have to store them. as regards composting, the time is also lengthy. How much land and time do you need? Have you communicated with the Development Bureau? And as for upcycling, I don't think we have enough wood artists and landscape architects to consume the large amount produced per day. You can give it out to them for free, and you can even deliver such items to them. What do you think is the most suitable approach for Hong Kong? It's true that composting is more land intensive, and our food waste treatment center will also generate compost. So the market will already be saturated. So composting is not a good way to handle yacht waste because it will take up land for a long time. And as for wood for use by wood artists, they need good quality wood, so the amount they can take up is not going to be a lot. Still, this is a valuable way of using our yacht waste, so we will reserve good quality yacht waste for wood artists, although this is not the best outlet. And I think Hong Kong can absorb tens of tons of material for mulching. But we believe the production of biochar can be the greatest outlet for yacht waste. It is not infeasible. It's just the cost effectiveness and the market demand for biochar. So we will have a pilot scheme, and if it is found feasible, then it will be a major way out for our yacht waste. Yes, it needs land, but not a lot. So if at remote areas near our landfills, at the periphery of our landfills, we have space perhaps that can be used. The most important thing is to choose the right technology and also the market demand, because it's directly related to the cost effectiveness. Well, even and as regards land you need, I don't know how to quantify the land you need. Next time you come to report to us, give us a rough idea how much you need, a ballpark figure in terms of millions or 100 millions. All right. No further questions? And now we come to our last item, and it's AOB. As I said, this is the last meeting of the panel. We thank government officials for coming to handle questions from members in the past few months. I know not all questions have been answered, and the government still owes us a lot of information papers and data. I hope in the next term you can settle the bill for us, and then we can enjoy more harmonious relationship, and hope you can come with good recommendations to reduce a dispute with members of the public. I thank the Secretariat. It's not easy for them to serve us. Thank you. If there are no other questions, the meeting ends here, and we are going to submit a report of the work of this panel to the Council on the 8th of July. Thank you very much.